If you ever played a video game, you've probably thought about making one. Some of you probably tried making a game and then immediately gave up after seeing how hard it is. But with the advancement and accessibility of technology, we could have had it now! You can now do what would normally take months into seconds. You can probably make a game in a week with little to no experience. And that's exactly what I'll be doing. Hi, my name is Totino, and I've been a corporate software engineer for the past 6 years. I've always been fascinated with the world of game development, but I've never really made my own real game. The only game I've made is a blackjack game you can play in a terminal, and video poker, also in the terminal, and also this generic catching game I made for a college project, which an AI can make in seconds now. So I never actually made my own original game, and I want to figure out how. I'm always impressed by game devs who can make completely unique games that are also fun. Like Lucas Pope, who made Return of Obra Dinn and Papers, Please. Both really unique and fun games. And I always wonder, how do they find the idea for these games? Well, actually, I found out that nothing is really unique. Everything is stolen from something, like how Sans Undertale is stolen from the webcomic Helvetica, or how Goku's origin story is stolen from Superman's origin story, which was stolen from Moses' origin story, or how Brotato is stolen from Vampire Survivors, which was stolen from Crimson Land, or how Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep's command board minigame was stolen from the Itadaki Street series, which was stolen from Monopoly, which was again stolen from the Landlord's game, which was also again stolen from the idea of being a landlord in real life. So yeah, nothing is original at all. And people might call this as inspiration. To me, that's still the same as stealing. But you obviously can't get away with just directly stealing the work. You need to change it a little. Add a twist, if you will. That's why I trademark an original method when making anything ever, called the yoink and twist. It's an original method I thought of myself on the top of my head, do not Google that. Also, I will sue the living heck out of everyone who uses this tool. Unless you're subscribed to my channel. Anyways, the yoink and twist method is just like what it says. You yoink an idea, then you do your own twist with it. But I can't just yoink, for example, Need for Speed, and twist it so that it uses real-life cars. No, that would be too obvious of a yoink. So I'm gonna introduce to you all probably the best yoinker in the world, and that is Quentin Tarantino. A lot of his movies are stolen from other stuff and people don't even know. And you know how he gets away? By stealing from very obscure media. Like Reservoir Dogs was stolen from the 1987 movie City of Fire, a movie you would never know about because it's from Hong Kong. And if you look at all original media that seems very unique, all of them are stolen from very obscure stuff. So, what will I yoink for my first game? Well, everyone thought Marble Snap was a unique and fun game that innovated card games. But in fact, it was stolen from a board game called Air, Land, and Sea. So for my game, I'm yoinking a board game from Tom Scott's game show back in 2016 called Game On. It's a show where the contestant played these 1v1 board games. At the show, they had a game called Black Hole, and this is how you play it.
It's a number war, and it's called Black Hole.
They're going to take turns placing counters, 1, then 2, then 3, all the way down to 10. At the end of the game, there'll be one place left on the board. That is the black hole, which sucks in all the numbers around it. So whoever has the least numbers pulled in is going to be the winner.
Right.
Yep.
Ready?
I was always curious to play it, so I drew this on a piece of paper. Not exactly black holes, but it works. And my buddy and I played the game during a slow day at my internship. And surprisingly, it was really fun. And over the years, I've played this pen and paper version with other people. Something I didn't realize while playing this game is that I accidentally made my own twist with the game. Instead of starting with 1 and going to 10, we just picked the number we wanted to place and crossed it out on the list. Another is that the goal of the game is apparently to get to the lowest number in the black hole, which just doesn't make sense because higher number equals win in almost every game ever. So yeah, we made it so that the higher number wins. And to avoid confusion, we changed 10 to just a 0 to keep all numbers one digit. And also maybe because I have shitty handwriting. Perfect! An obscure game that's fun and with my own twist. Except, I still feel like even though I yoinked it, I didn't twist it enough. And I'm mostly referring to how the board looks and how there are 10 placeable incrementing numbers for each player. I'd add up making the triangle upside down and making the tiles hexagon, maybe even making it be themed. But again, it still feels like an obvious showing from Black Hole. I feel like I can make this game simpler. Then, I got a brain blast bazinga moment. This is stolen from a board game. Board games have things with symbols that you place in boards called tiles. Tiles are square like my original pen and paper drawing. And also, most board games are just squares in square-shaped objects. So how about squares on a rectangle? And to make things simpler, it's only 7 tiles for each player in a 3x5 board. Oh my gosh. This is the perfect twist for this game. It's simple, unique, and fun. It's also easier to code a rectangle than a pyramid. The rules are pretty much the same, except now the last hole counts the numbers surrounding the square. And it's still as fun as the original. So you know what? Let's get to making this game. So what engine will it's Godot for? The reason why I actually decided to make games now is because of the release of Godot 4. And it looks very promising. And I just love free and open source software. Also, I don't have a dream game. So the games I want to make aren't really that big of a scope that I would need to use something like Unreal Engine 5. And most of the games I have in mind could technically be made using Pico 8. But Pico 8 is paid, so all of the games I want to make are very simple, just like this one. The problem with Godot, and especially Godot 4, is that there are way less tutorials for it compared to Unity and Unreal. This is where the 6 years of software engineer pays off, because I have experience using both closed and open software and reading both good and bad documentations, while also working with various programming languages over the years, as well as developing for different business needs for many companies. Man, I sound like I'm being interviewed for a job. Godot is not for beginners, and yes, the language I'll be choosing is GDScript and not C#. Even though it's probably better in case Godot becomes a mistake. I'm confident with my abilities, and if you forgot already, I'm making this entire game in just 1 week. Here is the initial design. The game would be a drag and drop game where you place your numbers in these black squares. I want the tiles to be on the sides just like on Tom Scott's video, with the 3x5 board being in the middle. I also made it a square screen because, I don't know. It's just easier to think in squares. No one will complain about resolution compatibility if it's a square, okay? I also made the tiles start from 0 to 6 to keep the original twist of the game. Now that we have the game concept and initial design, we'll now start development. On Monday, after work. Hey, just a note, I sound tired in this part because I just do. There's a lot of technical stuff here that I just don't want to give my whole energy talking. Also, the audio might sound robotic sometimes, and that's because I don't have a proper mic, and this is what it sounds like originally. So yeah, just a heads up. So since I work from home, I can watch the few tutorials out there about Godot while working. I initially watched this video just to understand how Godot 4 works. I learned how to navigate within the editor as well as how the nodes work and also how scripting works. But I'm not making an action RPG. I'm making a drag and drop board game. So I found this other tutorial specifically about drag and drops. The problem is that this tutorial is in Godot 3, while I plan on making the game Godot 4. I'm sure this won't be a problem since it's still using GDScript, right? Anyways, after work I finally started development by copying this tutorial 1-to-1 with only very minor changes. And this is what I got. It's not much, but it's a good start. Since I just copied the tutorial, I didn't know how some of the things work. Like, I understand that this ready function is the same as Python's init, and that the process function is the thing that renders every frame. But what's physics process? It seems similar to normal process, but I guess not. Also, what are groups? The tutorials mention that it is similar to tags in Unity, but I don't even know what the tags are in Unity. Anyways, I think this is a good resting point. Let's continue tomorrow morning. It's morning before work. Oh yeah, it gets really technical on this part, so I'm putting Subway Surfers and random clips on here from now on. I added some aesthetic changes to the game, such as making this tile design for the draggable pieces, as well as adding a light gradient background. I also added a modulate to change the color of the tile depending on which theme is set in its parameters. I initially wanted to do some sprite tile mapping for the graphics of this game, but the game I'm working right now doesn't need it. So yeah. Then after work, I added the design for the hole. I also added a number label in the tile. I made a new scene called Tile Collection, where I put all 7 tiles in, so that the 2 separate themes are made out of the same component. I'm not really sure if this is the best practice. I probably need to do some inheritance for this, but who cares, it works for now. I finally fixed the look of the holes, and also put all of them a scene called the Hole Collection. Again, I don't know if this is best practice, but it does clean up the nodes in my main scene. A thing that bothers me here is that because of the design of the hole, I was seeing that dot optical illusion in the rounded corners of the square. I tried mitigating this by adding some kind of matte, but it didn't work. I ended up changing the design of the holes, but ultimately, I just let it be. It's a feature now. I also added this label to indicate whose turn it is, but it doesn't work just yet. In the code side, I made it so that you can disable an entire tile collection from being draggable. I've now made it so that once you place your tiles in your corner will be disabled and the opponent can now move theirs. The text now properly indicates whose turn it is. It also shows end when all tiles have been used. Basically a trigger for the end of the game. What I did was I called the root component of the tiles and called a function within that script that processes the next turn. It triggers the end of the game after a certain number of turns has been done. Again, don't know if this is the best approach, but it works. Now for the score calculation. I added a zeroed value to the array variable in the main script to keep track of the board's numbers. Every time the user plays a tile, it will update this variable. I made it so that if it's red, the number is positive, and if it's blue, it's negative. At the end of the game, the idea is to find the first 0 on the board and then calculate the surrounding numbers around it. The problem is that the numbers in this game start at 0, and you can't do a positive and negative 0. So, I increased the number by 1 once it's been placed and then revert it back during the score calculation. And there you have it, now accurately showing the score of both players in this crappy label. The game is technically done, but there's still some adjustment that needs to be made. Every time I'm testing this game, I can't tell which player I should use, even though there's a text in the middle that says whose color it is. So I added this line underneath the player who's going, but that still didn't work. I still would try and drag blue, even though it's red's turn. So I made it so that if the tile is disabled, it would go slightly transparent. And now, I never make the mistake ever again. I still kept the line underneath since I think this might be a good timer thing if I ever decided to update this in the future. I also made this scoreboard component that will drop down at the end of the game. And to do that, I need to do some animations. So I watched a few tutorials about animations and made this. Nice. Now to actually put the scores in it. To do that, I made a script for the scoreboard component that takes the red and blue score as parameters and updates the score within. I also added text to indicate which player won or if it's a draw. It's now the last day of the week and I have all day to work on this. I added sound effects for picking up the tiles and also for placing them. The sound is supposed to be a wooden piece being placed on the board, like a board cane. I also made the drop to the target faster, just to match the sound effect. I also want an animation to indicate which tiles matter in the end, since only the surrounding tiles on the last hole matters. I went with the idea of the other tiles that's not needed being sucked in a black hole, kinda like the opposite of the original concept. So, I got this space sound effect, made it faster, and added a quick animation of the tile rotating and getting smaller. To actually show this, I added a group called Tiles for the, well, tiles. And during score calculation, Every component with the group tiles would play the animation, except for the ones surrounding the final hole. Here's the code. I know it's kinda spaghetti, but it works, and also it's the most optimized that I could think of. Not that it matters. I then play the sound effect afterwards. It still doesn't feel right though, because immediately after putting the last tile, the score drops down and the other tiles disappear instantly. So, I need some kind of delay, and this is where await comes in hand. Await basically pauses your code and waits until a trigger is finished. I actually discovered this as its Godot 3 equivalent, which is yield. But then I checked the documentation and yield doesn't exist. And after searching, I found out that it was replaced by await, which is great because every language nowadays uses await. On the code, await is used for a half a second timer before the animation. This is so that the player can have a slight breather after placing the final tile. Another await is when the sound effect is finished. Since the sound effect's timing is connected to the animation, we only need to know when the sound effect ends. And after it's done, the score will finally drop. I'm still not done though. I kinda want to show the tiles that disappeared at the end. And obviously, I want to wait for the players to restart the game. So I added this button that restarts the game and also this button that shows the tiles after the end of the game. And that's it. You didn't even have to use AI. You can play this game in itch.io, link in the description. No download required. I named it Dark Square since the original game is Black Hole. But instead of hole, it's squares, and I don't know, who fucking cares? Let me tell you what I think about this whole game dev experience. Man, game dev is easy. There's people who actually make games for more than 1 year. What the heck? These people suck. Cyberpunk 2077 was in development for 10 years? I can make it in just 10 days probably. Yeah, I'm kinda like the Sakurai of gaming. But in all honesty, game dev is more complex than what people show on YouTube. I obviously didn't have a QA team to check every nook and cranny in the game, so there are definitely some bugs in it. Since I'm a beginner, I didn't feel the need to use OOP, but I'll keep that in mind in the future. My game doesn't need it, but in the future, I might need to learn some optimization techniques just like object pooling in order to make the game run smoother. And I didn't use a version control. I might need to do some documentation, online multiplayer, a tile screen, options, and you know what? This game is perfect. I can only go up from here. These other devloggers don't know shit about games. I do. Then Totino will be remembered as the god of the game dev industry. And for my next game, it's gonna be even more fun and more unique. So watch out, bitch. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.